Hey guys, it's Linda Winter. So I have another template project for you. This is based on my dumplings, but this is going to be how do we get exactly what it is we want, where we place it. So my dumplings, if you know my dumplings, I've got 5 different sizes. There's a 5-inch, there's a 6-inch, there's a 7-inch, there's an 8-inch, and I have a 10-inch. The 10-inch, that's this guy here, that's this guy here, that's this guy here. This is an 8. I've got over here some 8s, I've got some 7s, I've got some 6s, and I've got a 5 here and a 5 here. Probably the most popular size is the 8-inch and the 8-inch here and these guys over here. I think it kind of is an easy one to do, to attempt, but the idea that I want to show you today is how to get my fabric placed exactly where I want. None of these that I have on the table, except for this, really needed to be fussy cutted because polka dots are polka dots. Where you place them doesn't really matter so much. But I want to be able to talk about how we get them placed. I've had a lot of you that have got the dumpling templates ask me for fussy cut frames. So I want to show you how to use the fussy cut frames because I now have the 5-inch, the 6-inch, the 7-inch, the 8-inch, and the 10-inch. So before I do that though, let's just pop back real fast. If you haven't seen, you can do dumplings with handles. You can do a dumpling with a little gusset inside. This is a big time wide open, let's see if I can find one, wide open that allows you to get way wide open. But if you don't want all your stuff to fall out, you can put a gusset inside of there. This is one that Darla made, and I showed this in the video that Darla did, or that I did on Darla's projects. She used the upholstery fabrics, and what I love about this is not only did she have the gusset, but that she added handles on there too. So the handles really make it nice as well. So that was the 10-inch and the 8-inch. She's got a set that was nested, and I love the idea of nesting. So you can make these as a gift. This with blue jeans I think is such a cool idea. She not only did handles, but she did rivets and the little mouse ears. Isn't that cute? That's adorable. So these guys here are some more dumplings. If you want to do any crazy quilting, Linda Olson did that. Lisa did some of these. Beth did some of these. This is another one from Darla. So you can do strips, you can do crazy quilting, you can do all those kinds of things. I'm going to put all these down below because I want to show you. There's more. I love that. And I love, we'll talk about this placement right here in a few minutes. Do you see how this green is a little bit lower than that? So where you place that makes all the difference. This is one that Beth did, and I want to talk about Beth's in just a few minutes, so I'm going to leave that out. All right, so fussy cutting. Fussy cutting, when we have a fabric that just screams for placement. This, no big deal. You're just going to fold it in half, and I wouldn't iron the fusible on because when you place this on, this guy here, if this is my outside, then I'm not going to want to have this. If this is my inside, then I'm going to cut the raw edge here. If it's my outside, then I place that on the fold. But the reason why I wouldn't do the fusible first is that it's a hard thing to cut right inside of here and cut inside of here. Remember, we have the cut marks. Those cut marks are what gives you the ability to get those mitered corners that are done so nicely. And remember the dumpling, basically we're going to be adding this zipper up here and we're going to be stitching that so it goes like this. Let me pull over one of the samples so you can see in the step outs. We're adding the zipper all the way around. And when we leave this open, we zip this up. What it's going to do is create the boxed corner for me. And because you've already got the boxed corner, when we stitch that down, you can see that right there. That's going to create for me this nice finish that's here. And that gives me the ease and the consistency. This side's going to be exactly the same as this because of this. So again, fusible, I wouldn't do if you're doing, this is a fusible foam. If you're doing the fusible fleece, then yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about our fabrics where there is a placement. I'm going to pull this back so we can use this as a reference. All right, so when we have a fabric like a polka dot, no big deal. But if we wanted to add some kind of a embellishment on their ribbon or whatever it is, we could place that on. I'll show you that in a few minutes. Right now, let's just talk about plain old fabrics. So I've got my gnomes, and I've got a bunch of different gnomes. When I grab one of my dumplings, you can see I can make him exactly centered here. Right down here, if you want to take that number 5 and basically draw a line right up, down, draw in the middle, the hash marks there will let you know where that's center. What we want to remember though is if I place him like this where he's centered here, I'm going to be missing the bottom of this gnome, because that gnome, let me find a solid one, that gnome right there, his feet, they're basically going to be right about here, because all of this right here, this area, that's what we have here. So when we place this, we want to think, this is a 5, I probably want to go up to a 6 for him, just to make sure that I can really get him showing. And do you see here where he is now? I know that I'm going to be able to see all of that gnome and get him in there. If I wanted to get 2 gnomes, these 2, you can see the number 6, my seam allowance for my zipper right about there. I'm not going to be able to get all of him in there, so I'm going to grab my 7 and look at the 2 of them. Do you see how I can frame those 2 out much nicer? Now, when you're framing this out, I look at my 2 gnomes. I'm going to take these guys, and we're basically going to fold in half. I'm looking at the edge of this gnome and the edge of this gnome, and I want to make sure that I've got a gnome and I've got a gnome. And you could take a finger press tool, you could take your iron, you could take my stiletto. And do you see how basically I've centered those 2? That crease is going to tell me where the center is. And again, take this template to your mat and just make a hash mark and a hash mark. I thought the hash marks were on there, so they're not. The next version, I'll try to get those out for you. But the idea is when I make these now, I can line up my hash mark with the fold. You can see right down here the 7. See how that 7 is perfectly centered? And when I place that on, I can see that fold lining up. And again, if I had that mark there, that would be good. Now, where they are right here, I'm going to pull down just a little bit, because again, this bottom part here, do you see how that's going to be wrapping around a little bit? That's where that fold is. So I want to make sure that my feet are showing. So the Fussy Cut allows you to figure out what it is you want. If I want these 2 guys, if I want this up, you know, do you see how I can feature the mushroom? So you decide what it is that you want with your fabrics and what it calls for. I love the idea of taking some of your scarves. My mother had some beautiful scarves. And with the scarf, you can see I've got stains here. So I can't use that part, but as I keep looking, I can see I've got frogs that aren't stained. Now, this is not pressed. How do we press something like this, and how do we add the fusible? You can use one of the Teflon sheets, or I have a shoe that actually goes on the bottom of your iron, and then that will allow you to press on these gorgeous scarves and those kinds of things. But when I look at these guys, can you see how all of a sudden my frogs just kind of pop over here? Look how gorgeous this is. So you can see right here, I've got my frogs upside down, but if I turn this, then you could imagine how those frogs would be really cool. So this allows you to see your fabrics and to see what it would look like, and to be able to see what would I actually get. This frames out what it is you want. So if you're going to use scarves, scarves would make really gorgeous, nice dumplings. They're not dumplings that you're going to use every single day, because they're scarves, especially if it's silk. This is a Vera Bradley, but you can see this is one that I had pressed a little while ago. It's got a couple wrinkles in it just from throwing it around, but you can see how I can fussy cut and decide, do I want to have this perfectly centered? Imagine that's nice and flat, or do I want to have it off to the side and maybe add some kind of embellishment or something? And I probably would go up to the 8-inch, just because I'd want a little bit more of the fabric to be able to be showing. Do you see how gorgeous this is when you start looking at your scarves and your different fabrics? You're going to have a whole lot of fun playing with your fabrics and pulling from your closets. When you have something that's straight, that has a straight, then now I've got the ability to, do you see my sew, cut, stitch? Imagine I have one layer, I've got this folded. You decide where it is that you want that placed, but I can look at the distance here and the distance here. Let me mess that up. And do you see how it's, I mean, it's obvious there, but I can also look down here and see where that is. So my Fussy Cut Frame allows me to decide what it is that I want. It basically eliminates all this other stuff and lets you see what you're going to be getting. Normally, I would say with the Fussy Cut Frame, you get to see exactly what it is you get, but you're not going to here because, again, with this boxed bottom. So you have to remember my seam allowance here for those boxed bottoms, that excess for the boxed bottoms. So all of that here, that's what this is here. So you want to play with that a little bit. All right, let's take a look at some other fabrics. I have some fabrics here on top that are fairly big. I'm going to pull these over and let's take a look at some of the different things that we can see with our fabrics. So I've got parrots here. If you love parrots or dogs or frogs or birds or whatever it is, you've got somebody that's traveling wherever, then use the Fussy Cut Frames. Do you see how everything is at an angle or sideways? So I'm going to look at this here. And let's pull that down so you can see. And do you see how basically I have him perfectly centered? Now remember, this is sideways, so I've got so much fabric. Let's go ahead and turn this so we can see. And do you see how that's one parrot? Do you like that parrot? Do you like this parrot? Do you like the two parrots? So if I'm going to do those two parrots, I need to go up one size in the fussy cuts and in the templates themselves. So you can decide what it is that you want just by using the Fussy Cut Frame. I love the idea of exploring with your fabrics. Again, if you're into sea life, ocean, whatever, scuba diver, if you have an aquarium, if you've got a child, you're going to buy a turtle for him, well, maybe make a little pouch that holds all of the supplies. Do you see these guys here, the 6-inch? You may want to go bigger. Do you see how I can take advantage of my Fussy Cut Frame to figure out what it is that I want? You choose what it is that you want. You can also, if you're into photography, then you know things going out of the frame versus in the frame. Can you see how this right here, if I went to my 10-inch and I had this guy looking in and these guys looking in, this is my 8-inch, the 10-inch, let's see if I have enough fabric here. Not enough. Do you see over here? We'll talk about what we do in a minute. If that's what we really want, this, and I didn't have any other fabric, what do we do over here? But imagine I've got some fabric here, and do you see how these turtles are looking in and these turtles are looking in? That's a good frame. Notice up here, I don't have enough fabric. Because I do have plenty of fabric, I would go find that somewhere else on the fabric. But being able to fussy cut with a Fussy Cut Frame makes all the difference. There are a lot of panels that are out and a lot of things that are made for smaller projects. Quilt blocks, those kinds of things. So if I wanted this, let's go with my little guy. And do you see how I can get just his face? Well, look, I've got black over here. I don't want that. Do you see how I'm losing him? So again, I know that I would need to go higher. Look what I'm getting. Look what I'm getting. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go over to him. Again, I've got some black here, some black here. My zipper is going to be here, but that's not enough for my seam allowance of my zipper. So I'm still going to end up having black showing. So if I wanted him, do you see how this is too close? Let's go over to the next one. And do you see how this, when I place this here, now my zipper isn't going to be an issue, or this isn't going to be an issue because of that zipper. But do you see how just turning this a little bit, I can now see a different view of this fox to be able to see what it is that I want. Right there, again, an issue. So let's talk about things like this. What would we do to make some of these what we want? Since I've already got black here and I've already got black here, what I could do is add black, add strips of black. Let me grab, I'm like, where are they? Imagine this is black. Add strips that you basically pieced on. You've pieced on, you've pieced on, you've pieced on. So now when you've got that, that's intentional. Not only your black fabrics, but you can add your leathers and things like that. Remember the dumplings that had a bottom, this bottom part here, and I said we would look at a couple of those. This here, imagine that being a faux leather that you add. So this is not the greatest one to choose because his face is so close to the edge. Same thing with this one, so close to the edge. But you can play around with adding on kind of a crazy quilt kind of a look for that. All right, so I want to go ahead and cut one for you. I've got my 6-inch fussy cut that does not have the no slip backing on it. That allows me to move this around. That's my viewfinder, my window, my frame. This is my dumpling template that has the no slip material on it. So I'm going to position this where I want. So if I want the face to be the feature, if I want some of the green to be in there, you decide what it is that you like. I think right about there, I'm going to hold this down nice and snug. I'm going to place the template right inside. When that template goes in, I'm looking to see that it's placed specifically. We pop. When I lift up that fabric, that removes that. I want to keep my hand on that template. I'm going to roll my rotary cutter open. I don't have any place on my table. We're going to cut around. Now, when I cut around, I'm getting right to about here, and I'm going to stop, and I'm going to go in the opposite direction. I don't want to lose, even though I've cut off a lot of this guy, I don't want to lose any of that additional fabric. So let's see, I've got all of that. I've got that area there. I'm going to go in, and we're going to cut here. And we have those cut marks for you. I'm going to cut along here, and we're going to cut that cut mark area, and that allows me to cut. I've got a couple threads that I'll go cut. We're going to cut down here. I'm going to cut up to this side, inside of there. Make sure your fingers are not anywhere close. I'm going to come here, and I could literally move the fabric with that template and cut right inside of here. I'm going to lift this up. I probably have a couple threads that need to be cut. You can see right here there are a couple threads that need to be cut, and over here a couple threads. I can go in and cut with my rotary cutter here. I've got an area right here when I moved forward, and then right inside of here I'm just going to go ahead and cut. What that's going to give me, and one little other area, what that's going to give me is this little guy. Now he's ready to go, so he's in good shape to go. Remember, we are not folding our fabric because my seam allowance, if I had that, my next one would be in the wrong direction. So I'm going to go back and look to see what I have left on that fabric that I have here because I want to take advantage of all of this other stuff. So here's my 6-inch. Do you see if I keep going right there, I can see some of the mat. But imagine if I keep moving over a little bit, can you see how right there, that's my seam allowance. I'm okay with having that little bit of area right there where my seam allowance, I mean, it's a hair, maybe not even a hair. And I could even turn this up in the opposite direction. Do you see how I can get him? And I could even move him this way. If I turn this, do you see how that changes what we're seeing? It's so busy, this fabric, that it's hard to see. But when I have this fussy cut frame on here, it really helps me identify. Do I want that in there? Do I want it straight on? Do I want him straight on? So you figure out what it is you want. When I continue on, this guy here, as I'm cutting him out, I want to come over and see, well, I like this guy too. Do I want this guy here? Look at my black that's here. With that black, I'm going to go in. If I'm making a bunch of these, then I'm going to look to see, there's my 5-inch, and I've got a whole bag that's just this guy. So maybe I go in and I look to see, not so much. So you get the idea. When you're playing with the fussy cut frame, it lets you take advantage of all of the different characters that you have, and you can get an idea of how you can take advantage of as much real estate on this fabric as possible. We want to cut one more out if we're going to make this double-sided, but you don't have to. You can go to a polka dot. Let's grab this. And you can have this one side and you can have this the other side. I would like to have both of these the same. Now, the other thing you can do too, a lot of times they'll have matching fabrics. This was a panel, and you can see right here, this goes along with it. So we did the 6-inch, so we're going to the 6-inch. And do you see, when I was talking about piecing, adding on, do you see how this is already pieced? I could go in with a decorative stitch and stitch right on top of here so that it looked like I joined and joined and joined and pieced these. Do you see how these guys here, Do you see these guys here? Do you see how I can play with that? That's going to be part of my seam allowance, the white that's showing. So you can decide what it is you want. You can even go to here or here. So you play with the fabrics that are there. So you decide what it is you want. If I want one side with this and the other side with this. One side with this, the other side with this, or the other side with another gecko, lizard, whatever it is. So I think these are so much fun because it lets you look at your fabrics. This was a panel. This was a big panel. It had all these small pieces that went along with it. So you can really play along and have a whole lot of fun with that. I've got more panels over here. Some of these are hits and some of these are misses. When I look at my unicorn that I have here, again, if I look at this right here, you can see I've got white that's showing. That's not going to do me any good unless I purposefully here add a piece and then over here, same spacing, I add a piece. Do my stitching first. This doesn't match. This doesn't match. Let's put this on. This doesn't match, but let's pretend that I've got this here that I've pieced and I have the same fabric over here that I pieced. And when I look at this now, I have a better idea of what it is I'm going to get. Don't like it. Don't like, not just because it's black and black. Imagine that this is a nice gold fabric or something, but it doesn't give enough. If I did something larger and I added my black up here, gold, imagine over here, I added something up here. Do you see how even just that placement? Again, let's pretend that this is something pretty that matches, but do you see now how you can see the dumpling that's there? Look just inside of there, and all of a sudden we're starting to see something that's coming together. So even when I have something like this that doesn't allow me to do that, whatever I do over here, I probably want to do over here. Now I said probably because sometimes you can do, this is straight on, but sometimes you can do at an angle, and you can have fun with those too. So another panel right here, and do you see how all these right here, let's pull. All these pieces, when I said you could add on, way too busy to add on to the front. But do you see how you have more options? Even here, looking at what I have there for the dumpling, this piece in the middle, these panels that you can find, I don't want to cut up the tree, but look at this guy right here. That might be able to fit in. If I add a piece and I add a piece, that might be really nice. Or it might be nice to take in part of the tree and have that. So the Fussy Cut Frames, what I was doing there, that doesn't really give me anything, but my Fussy Cut Frames do allow me to do that. Same thing with your motorcycles. Same thing with whatever it is that whoever you love, whoever you care about is into. Do you see how right here I can see I've got a lot, But again, if I added some faux leather, add a piece of faux leather that you've stitched, add a piece of faux leather that you've stitched, add something up here. Remember, we've got the zipper up here, so we don't want to do a whole lot up there, but right here even, do you see how that orange, that's going to be part of the zipper. I'm going to lose a little bit of that, but again, if I've got faux leather here, I probably would go up larger again, because when I start to look at what it is I'm doing, I need more here to tell me why. Why have I added here? It's too little. Do you see how a little bit of faux leather and a little bit of faux leather, it's just too little. And besides, I can't see the wheels of the bike. When I go to this, now you can see if I've added some faux leather and I've added some faux leather. Look at right here, Do you see the distance, how I don't have that centered? So that's gonna help me center out even. When I go up a little bit further, do you see how that lets me frame out a little bit better so that I can see what it is that I want to do? And again, adding those strips, and all you're doing when you're fussy cutting is you're just placing the strip. You're not sewing it on when you're doing this. You're just placing. Go ahead and, don't even cut strips. Just place something here and place something over here. And if you have the fabric that you were going to use, the faux leather, then that would be a good thing. Do you see the orange that's there? You may want to keep that orange in there because it has a little bit of a pop, both of those oranges. So it may be that I'm stitching right to the cream. Same thing over here. So what this will do, and again, we're not going to add polka dots to a Harley, But that will give me an idea of, do I like that kind of a look? You can see when I'm trying to place all of this here, what it is that I'm going to be getting. What do we need to do down here? We need to add more of this down here as well, so that I'm seeing this is intentional, this is intentional, this down here is intentional, and that becomes the star. So a fussy cut frame allows you to play around. All right, so I talked about the one that Beth did. This is one that Beth made, and I love that she pieced all of this. Look at the bottom, look at the sides, everything is different. Well, when I saw this, it reminded me that I had some ribbons. Now, she's made it kind of adultish. I want to show you how to make it for kids. I mean, these are just so cute. So they had these little packages somewhere, and the colors are just perfect for this. So if we were going to add this on, let me get this. Imagine that she hadn't pieced any of this, or hadn't sewn any of this, I should say, but she got it to this point. You know, then we start adding one. You know, we're adding one here. And then we're adding, do you see how that blends too much? So maybe I want to add this right inside of here even. So we can place that with the fussy cut frame with our fabric. So imagine we've got that laid out, and we're looking at, do I want, it would be this way, and do I want to add another one here? Do I want to add, she's got these nice and straight, so we could add these, you know, again, one here, and you could audition this before you stitch them on. You know, the narrower ones probably would be better. This might be a little bit too much. On this size, probably go up to a bigger size if you're going to add ribbons and embellishments, those kinds of things. These ribbons that I have here, I've got these ribbons that I love, and someday I'm going to do one that has the ribbon going across for Make It Sweet. Life is short, make it sweet is this one. There's another one that is Be You, Beautiful. All right, so remember this, remember this. These guys here, you can see how this is taller, this is lower. Even that placement, you can decide what you like. You know, sometimes it's the fabric that's going to tell you what it is that you can do because you don't have enough fabric, but sometimes there's just a nicer look. I like this look because it's a little bit higher than this look. So this look to me is not quite as high as this one. So I like this look. So when you're making your sample, do a sample first. Go ahead and cut one out that's flat. And then when you get your fussy cut frame on there, decide where it is that you're going to add that additional piece of fabric. So if you're adding that fabric, you know, do I want it here? Imagine that's where it is. So are we going to add the fabric basically, you know, where it starts here and it finishes here? When you've got your fussy cut frame, it's going to let you do that. Let's see if I can get all that untangled. So do you get the idea on what it is I mean for that? So this, when I'm looking at all this for the bottom, that's your fabric on the fold. We're basically looking at, when we place this inside, and of course I don't have any that are the right sizes, but you get the idea of how far up do I want this to go. You know, do I want it to be here when I go to cut? And the fold, this is going to be at the bottom. That's where we are on the sides. So you can play with this. When you play with this, go ahead and cut out some different samples of this to decide, do I want it here? Do I want it, you know, to go from here and here? Do I want it to go a little bit further down? And play with that. And again, cotton fabric, but leather, faux leather, vinyl, those kinds of things too. I have one last set of materials that I want to show you because I think they're a lot of fun to do with the dumplings. Let's see if I can grab all of this stuff over. Laminated fabrics. Laminated fabrics, remember you can iron on laminated fabrics only if, I say only if, because you don't ever want to iron on laminated fabrics. So you can heat up the wool mat with your iron, heat up, and then imagine I've got one piece and give it a little bit of a press. Or you can very, very lightly place this on and very, very lightly press. So this laminated fabric, laminated on one side, not laminated on the other. But the laminated fabrics are a whole lot of fun to do with the dumplings. When we start looking, imagine that this was pressed. Do I like this? Do I like this? Do you see how cute that is? Look how I don't have enough fabric there. This is the 8. If I had the 7, that would be the perfect size probably to have this plus the flower. But do you see how right here, he's going to get lost. I don't have enough fabric over here. He's going to get lost. That zipper isn't going to catch. So this is not going to work. If I put him at an angle, do you see how still I'm not going to be able to do that? Now I've got the fabric on the fold, but if that was the edge of the fabric, I'd have to move and go somewhere else. Do you see how right here, this guy and that flower, you can choose how it is that you want it to be. You know, do I want him kind of in air? Look at my little bird there. I like the bird. Do I want to have just the bird with the eyes? That's on the bottom. That's not going to show it all. So you use the Fussy Cut frame for laminated fabrics. All right, so I love this laminated fabric. So this has so many possibilities. So I can go right in and look to see. None of this over here is going to show. This is the star. Do I want it perfectly centered? Do I want it over here? You can see how I'm going to get a little bit of this, just the flowers. If I want to come up here, you can see I'm not getting all my rows. Remember, that's going to be further down in that fold. But just by moving my frame around and being able to see what it is that I get with the Fussy Cut frame makes all the difference. I like this idea. The 5 inch is too small, so I'm going to go to the 6 inch and let's see how that looks. So we can see my zipper is going to be right about here. I'm going to get the pink concept of the rose, this down here. So we're going to go to the 7 and we'll look at that same idea. And now I'm seeing, oh yeah, I'm liking that. I like what I've got. I'm not going to have this whole bird cage. So if I really, really like that bird cage and I still want to get that whole shot, now I've got this and I can start to look. I've got a lot of space over here that's blank, so I'm going to move this over a little bit. I've got the flowers there. Do you see how the Fussy Cut frame makes it so much better, easier, accurate for me to do what I want to do? Let's go to the big guy, the 10 inch, and let's see what that same area looks like and to see if I have too much wasted space. So notice I was up here. All that wasted area right here, it's too much. My zipper's going to be here, but I still don't want to have all that wasted. And I want to have as much of this in where I am going to be on that side of the bag. And remember down here, my boxed area, this is all going to be gone, so we're going to keep going down a little bit. And can you see by using this frame how much I can get? Remember, we're going to fold the laminated fabric to find the center if I want here to here centered. If I want to scoot it over a little bit, I've still got this now in the shot. I can come up here and I can get this over here, and I say shot because I'm looking at my Fussy Cut frame. Do you see how even just going over to the side changes it? Now the bird cage is the center rather than kind of off center. All right, so Fussy Cut frames for the dumplings. I've got Fussy Cut frames for a lot of the templates, so be sure to watch some of the other videos that I have on fussy cutting. This one I felt like was important enough to show you because the bottom is a little bit different, and that area that you're going to be cutting is going to be treated a little bit differently. You can find these on my website, winnerdesigns.com. Click on products and templates, and then in the search box, you're going to type in dumpling. Now you could even write D-U-M-P. It's going to give you everything that's dumpling related. So dumpling, as we scroll down, you can see the individual dumplings, but we want to look for the dumpling fussy cuts. And there's the dumpling template fussy cuts. That's one option. If you look down below, we also see the dumpling bundle. If you don't have any of the dumplings, then getting the bundle is a great way to go. But let's look at the dumpling template fussy cuts. You have lots of options, and you can see on the pictures there's different sizes, but when we click on that box, it allows you to get just the fussy cut. So if you already own the dumpling template, then you can buy just the fussy cut. Or you can buy all 5 fussies. So if you have 5 of the dumplings already, then you can get the 5 fussies. If you don't have any of this, you can also get the 5 templates and the 5 fussies here. And then you can get just the 8 inch with the template and the fussy, or just the 6 inch, or just the 10 inch template and fussy. So you got lots of options there. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the fussy cut option. Lots of you requested this. I think it's going to be a really nice addition to the dumpling template. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and if you wouldn't mind, give me a like and thumbs up, share, all of those good things. visit my Facebook page, visit my YouTube, all of that stuff. And I always post new videos, new projects, new directions, those kinds of things on my Facebook page. So check me out there too. And this is Monkey. Thanks, guys.